the Torah before reviewing the majority of the laws. He introduced some new laws. Dever Yardim Beretz Moav, Hoel Moshe, Ber Es Torah Hazos Lemor. He explained or elucidated the Torah saying, to take a look in Rashi, Hoel, Hischil Kamohine no Halti. What's Ber Es Torah? B'shivim Lashon Pirshalem. Moshe Rabbeinu transmitted the Torah to the Klal Yisrael in 70 languages. Hear this? That means the Jews understood 70 languages. B'shivim Lashon Pirshalem. That's Be'er Heitev. It was explained and elucidated in every context of expression. Now, firstly, why? What's the reason? I mean, the Jews spoke Lashon HaKodesh, they spoke Hebrew. The Rambam writes that the reason why the Anshe Knesset Gdola, at the beginning of the Second Temple period, they had to author a uniform text for the Shemon Esrei, according to Rambam, Tfilas Doraisa. So the Rambam writes that before the Churban Bayis Rishon, before the destruction of the First Temple, the language of the Jew was Hebrew. Lashon HaKodesh, pure Hebrew. That was the holy tongue. When we went to exile for 70 years, we were exposed to other languages. And the Jews spoke Persian, they spoke Babylonian. As a result of that, the Hebrew language became a jargon. It wasn't pure Hebrew. And as a result of that, since the Shemon Esrei, the Amidah, is you're having an audience with Hashem and you're speaking to him, therefore the language has to be pure. When you speak to Hashem, it has to be pure Hebrew, pure Lashon HaKodesh. Therefore, they authored a uniform text. Anshe Knesset Gedola, they're all Jews. When they pray the Amidah, it's the identical words. And those words are Lashon HaKodesh. It's the purest, holiest language. There's no jargon, no other words are there. Okay? Because it's God's language. So when you study Torah, when you speak to Hashem, the ultimate is what? Is to speak to him in his language. Person can't speak Hebrew. You pray in any language. Any language, as long as you understand the language, it's okay. Whether you play in Russian and English and French and Spanish, it doesn't make a difference. It's valid. But the ultimate is to pray and use the words that were authored by the Anshe Knesset Gedola, by the men of the High Assembly. We explained many times, why was man endowed with language, with speech? Why? And we showed, last week we discussed, that the ability to speak is what? Is an expression of the neshama. It's a spiritual sense. And we quoted the Gemara. The Gemara tells us, based on a pasuk, Chaim hi l'motzaehem, that when you study Torah, you have to articulate the words, and only then does it have its major effect on the neshama. So therefore, God endowed man with speech. Why? So our neshama should be affected when we study the Torah. Our neshama should be impacted by that, because speech, the expression of speech, is a direct derivative of the neshama of the soul. So the ability to speak, whatever you speak, whether you speak Hebrew, whether you speak French, any language, it's that same sense which emanates, which is a spiritual sense, language. You're able to express it. As a result of that, if the power of speech has relevance to all 70 languages, therefore, whatever language you speak, it has to be communicated in every language, because every language is going to impact on the soul in a similar way. Hebrew is the ultimate, but other languages also impact, because man was endowed with speech specifically for that reason. As a result of that, he communicated the Torah to Klal Yisrael in 17 languages. Now the question is, you mean every Jew knew 17 languages? The Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin, to be a member of Sanhedrin, you had to understand 70 languages. Why did you have to understand 70 languages? So the Gemara says that when the court receives the only evidence, which is considered bona fide evidence, is testimony of qualified witnesses. Let's say witnesses come and they testify in Swahili, and the judges don't understand Swahili. So what do they have? They have an interpreter. The interpreter who understands, he will, when the person testifies, they will communicate to the judges exactly what was said. It's not valid. It's not valid testimony. Because based on psukim, the judges have to hear directly the testimony from the witnesses and understand what the witnesses are saying. It can't come through an intermediary. As a result of that, every member of the Sanhedrin who received the testimony, who heard the testimony, has to hear it, has to understand that language. We read about Mordechai, the reason why he knew that the gatekeepers were plotting to poison Achashverosh, because since he was a member of the Sanhedrin, he understood 70 languages, and these people never could believe that anybody would understand their language because they came from a far-off province. But it was within earshot of Mordechai, therefore he understood, and he immediately reported this to Esther, that they're plotting to kill Achashverosh. So the testimony should be understood by the judges, but that's not why he's over here. So you say maybe he's communicating the Torah, but that has nothing to do with testimony. So the judges, they were at a special level. They understood 70 languages. They were beyond our understanding what a genius is. The memories, their intellect, whatever it was. But at Sinai, it says he taught 70 language, the Torah in 70 languages to all Klal Yisrael. Over here, what's it all about? So there's an interesting measure at the beginning of Parsha Shmos. Moshe originally had a speech impediment. So he says to Hashem, I should go to Moshe. I should be your representative and speak to Paro on your behalf. Paro is the height of civilization. People come from all over the world, ambassadors and ministers who speak all kinds of languages. And they speak their language in the most articulate, in the most sophisticated way. And they have 70 interpreters to be able to interpret these people when they speak their languages, to communicate to Paro whatever they come to say. I am your representative, the creator of the world. I have a speech impediment. Besides not understanding 70 languages, I can't even when I do understand what I could say, I stammer because I have a speech impediment. It's a disgrace that I'm coming to represent you where I can't even articulate the language I do speak. I can't articulate it as it should be. So Hashem says, Misam Pelo Odom, who gives anybody the ability to speak. That was Hashem's response. So the Medrash says, Odom Arishon spoke 70 languages. Odom Arishon spoke 70 languages. So Hashem says to Moshe, but who taught Odom Arishon 70 languages? He never had a teacher. But Odom Arishon was versed in 70 languages. He says he never had a teacher. So if that's the case, what are you worried about? If you're my representative, you'll be able to speak 70 languages. That's the Medrash Tanchuma over there. Ami Sam Pelo Odom. Who gives anybody the ability to speak? Now, if Odom did not have a teacher to teach him 70 languages, this is even before language it came into existence, because it happened in the Tower of Babel. Until Migdal Bavel, all humanity spoke Hebrew. Language was not introduced to humanity. So how did Odom speak 70 languages? So the understanding is that anything that exists within the realm of knowledge is part of creation. So within creation, there is 70 languages. Otherwise, like Shlomo said, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that exists was created from the very beginning of existence. That means 70 languages, that knowledge exists within existence. Adam, as it says, when he was created, he was the handiwork of God. He was able to see from one end of the world to the other. He saw the world in its entirety as what it was. Because his level at that time, he radiated with Malachim that had mistaken his radiance for the radiance of Hashem. It says the mention of understanding, he understood the whole universe, the physical and the spiritual worlds. If that's the case, whatever exists within existence, he was in touch with that. Therefore, he was able to speak 70 languages. He didn't need a teacher. It was just there. It was part of him. It was part of his being, his dimension of understanding of all existence. That's why Adam was able to speak 70 languages, although he was not taught by anyone the 70 languages. Moshe Rabbeinu now is representing Hashem. Being connected to the source, automatically, you're connected to everything that exists. Once you're connected to everything that exists, you know 70 languages. because that exists within existence. That's part of creation. Therefore, that's what Hashem said to Moshe, Misam Pelo Odom. Who gives anybody? Who gave Odom the ability to understand 70 languages? Because I created him. Because he was my handiwork. That was his dimension. You being my representative, that you have new dimension. Based on that dimension, you have no problem that you'll be able to speak 70 languages. But he still, because he felt he'd be insulting his brother, Aaron. As a result of that, Hashem says, Aaron will be your spokesman. And Moshe only overcame the impediment at Sinai when all the Jews were actually healed from all their impediments at Sinai. That's when Moshe no longer was able to speak without the speech impediment at that time. But factually, all the Jews being at Sinai, and they prophesied in that wake state, that dimension which they came upon, it was a new dimension of understanding. As a result of that, the totality of Torah, the world, the blueprint for creation is the Torah. As it says, it's God looked in the Torah, created the world. That means every aspect, anything that exists within existence, the blueprint is the Torah. So that the 70 languages in existence, that's part of creation. It's part of the blueprint. Therefore, when he communicated the Torah, he communicated in its entirety. As a result of that, it's communicated within the context of 70 languages.
So after the
Hashem Elokeinu, Diber Aleinu b'Chorif Lemor. Hashem, our God, spoke to us in Chorif Lemor. Rav lochem shevis b'hor hazeh. You gained much when you dwelt at the mountain, meaning at Sinai. Rav lochem, we assumed a special level of distinction. So Rashi says, Kipshuto, Yesh Medjagodo, Harbi lochem gedulo schar al yeshivaschem b'har hazeh. You received much distinction and much reward because of the event that took place at that mountain. Asisa Mishkan. You made a Mishkan, Menorah, V'Kelim, Kibaltim Torah. Mandisem Lochem Sanhedrin. Sorry, I love Meos. Yeah, let's talk about sequentially speaking. You made a Mishkan, which is Menorah V'Kelim, the Menorah and Kelim. Kibaltim Torah. You received the Torah, and you appointed a Sanhedrin with all the various echelons of judges. I mean, seemingly, it's not sequentially correct, right? Seemingly. He should have said, Kibaltim Torah. That's the first thing that happened, correct? God gave us the Torah. And then, because of the Chet Egel, we had to make a Mishkan, Menorah V'Kelim. And then we speak about the Sanhedrin. But here it says, the Mishkan before Kibaltim Torah. How do we relate to this? Simple question. We had two sets of tablets. We had Luchas Rishonos, we had Luchas Shneiyos. If the first tablets wouldn't have been broken, if we wouldn't have sinned with Chet Egel, we as a Jewish people were a different dimension. We achieved a level of distinction. We reverted back to pre-sin of Adam. So our understanding of Torah, because the totality of our spirituality was at another level, that Kabbalah Torah was a different Kabbalah Torah. As a result of the Chet Egel, we became permanently handicapped because we reverted back to post-sin. As a result of that, we were disenfranchised because you're no longer the same people. Because now you have this handicap which doesn't allow you to access whatever that is, this more advanced level of Torah. Therefore, there's Luchas Shneiyos. Luchas Shneiyos is a different level. The Gemara says if the Luchas Rishonos would have never been broken, no Jew would ever forget anything he ever studied. We only have to review and be committed at a certain level, because otherwise we would forget what we already had studied. We were at a much lesser level. Our capacity was minimized to something we can't even relate to what degree we were minimized. So there was new Kabbalah Torah. The Luchas Shneiyos was a new Kabbalah Torah, but that ability to be touched and to be developed through that, you needed a Mishkan. Because the Torah itself is Hashem. And God says, Vosli Mishkan Shechanti B'tocham. It's only through the medium of the Mishkan could we have this relationship. So therefore, the Mishkan had to be first to be able to have the relationship. Here we're talking about post-sin of the eagle. What happened at the mountain? What happened before is irrelevant. Because that doesn't have relevance to you. But why did you assume that special level of distinction? You know why? Because Hashem gave you a Mishkan. And there's a medium that you can have a relationship with him. And because of that, now you have relevance to the Torah. And so on and so forth. That's why over here, the Kabbalah Torah is post Mishkan and not pre-Mishkan for that reason.
It doesn't.
Omer Aleichem Beisahi, Lamor. I said at that moment, L'ucha levadi seiseschem. Your people are too difficult to carry. I'm not going to spend time on that. We discussed it in the past, not here. Hashem Elokechem, Hirbo Eschem. Hashem, your God, increased you. V'yinchem hayom kikoch be'eshmaim l'rov. And today you are like the stars of the heaven in abundance. So just to understand, originally Hashem had said to Avram Avinu, your children will be like the stars of the heaven, and just as you cannot count and compute the stars of the heaven, your children will not be computable. You'll never come upon that number. What is the meaning of this? In the history of this existence, we never were ever that number. So what does it mean? We'll be like the stars of the heaven. So we discussed many times. The Mishnah tells us in Sanhedrin, the innate value of one Jew is the equivalent to the whole world. So we're not talking about quantitative number. We're talking about qualitative number, the innateness of every Jew. What's that dimension? That dimension is not fathomable. You cannot fathom the innate value of a Jew. That's just as you cannot fathom, come upon the number of stars. It is impossible to come upon, to fathom the innateness of a Jew, of the Jewish people. That's Kochei Shemaim L'Rov. If you remember, I once quoted the Ramak, Moshe Cordovero in the Talmud Dvorah. We say in the beginning of the Birchas Kriyishma, Ma Rabu Ma'asech Hashem, Kulam B'Chochma Sisa. Right? That's the term. Ma Rabu Ma'asech Hashem. How, the two ways to understand Rabu. How numerous are your actions? Or Ma Rabu means dimensionally how exalted are your actions. So the Ramak, Moshe Cordovero says, Ma Rabu does not mean numerous. It means the dimension of distinction. Meaning every aspect of creation has Hashem's fingerprint on it, Kavayochel. And therefore it's something not fathomable. His dimension went in to bring about that creation, everything is Ma'arab Masecho. It reflects God's dimension of greatness. Kochei Shemaim L'Rov. It doesn't mean abundance. It's same thing, it's Ma'arabu. We're speaking dimensional. It's a dimension that you can't relate to. As the stars you cannot fathom the innateness of the Jewish people. Rav Chaim Volozhin in the Nefesh Chaim cites sources that the greatest angel cannot fathom the makeup of the Jewish soul, of Nishmas Yisrael. And he explains why. Because the neshama of the Jew, which is a different dimension of neshama of soul than the non-Jew, it emanates from under the Kisei HaKavod, whatever that means, from the heavenly throne of Hashem. Everything else in creation came about from lower than that. So any creation that came into being, even the greatest angel, cannot fathom anything which comes from a source which is above itself. That's why even the greatest angel, whatever it is, cannot fathom the spiritual makeup of the Jewish neshama for that reason. What's that? Yeah. So therefore, Rov doesn't mean abundance. It means the dimension of distinction. That's what it means. It's something which is not fathomable. And it makes sense. You know, I always mention the Maral. The Maral says, when you cleave to Hashem, Chaim Kulchem Hayom. Why? Why when you cleave to Hashem is it Chaim Kulchem Hayom? Because what is the source of all existence? Hashem. So when you cleave to the source, you're connected to the totality of Chaim. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to Klal Yisrael. Atem advekim b'Hashem. When you dovek, you cleave to Hashem, Chaim Kulchem Hayom. That's the understanding. So the Ramchal writes in the Das Tfunos that although a human being, even the greatest person, is finite, but you're able to become part of infinite system. How? When you graft a branch onto a tree, and you do the graft, it's a proper graft. What happened? It becomes part of the ecology of the tree. Although the neshama of a Jew is great as it is finite, but if it attaches itself to Hashem, what is it attaching itself to? To the infinite. As a result of that, what's finite can become part of the infinite through attaching itself. You understand? Once you attach itself, what becomes the dimension of the neshama of the Jew? It reflects Hashem. That's the rov. It's like Ma'arabu Masech Hashem. Because Hashem wills that, it's directly coming from Him, therefore it's not fathomable what it is. Same idea. He says, what is Siyata Dishmaya? Divine assistance. So he explains with this allegory that in the Middle Age times, they would have a contest. They had to ascend a ladder. And if you reach a certain level on the ladder, you won a purse of gold. For hundreds of years, people tried to climb this ladder. The ladder had about 1,000 rungs. And you had to get to the 1,000th rung. People tried. They could never get beyond the 75th rung. Because once they got that high, the ladder started to shake. And if they go further, they'd fall to their death. Finally, but there was a precondition. When you started to climb the ladder, you had to wear a large leather belt with a large iron buckle. Iron. Nobody understood why. So finally, hundreds of years into this contest, a man says, you know something? Even if I fall to my death, I'm going to push it to the nth degree. So the man's finally reached rung 90. Rung 90, nobody's ever reached rung 90. So he has to hit rung 1,000. Is there even the consideration he's going to reach 1,000? By the time he gets that high, a little bit high, he's going to fall off the ladder. This man says it doesn't make a difference. And he pushes and pushes. And when he reaches rung 95 automatically, there's a magnetic force that draws him all the way up to rung 1,000. Nobody understood. The reason why he had to wear that belt with that metal iron buckle, you had to be within the magnetic force to draw you all the way up to the top. That's the Siyata Dishmaya. We do what we could do. You can't do more than you can do. But if you go and do your maximum, Hashem draws you all the way to the top. And you get back straight to the source. That's the Alta of Kelem. That's Rav Simcha's and Ziv. That's his moshel. And that's exactly what you're saying. We're at the bottom of the ladder. The objective in life is to climb that ladder. How do you get there? It's impossible. No, if you do your best, you're drawn up there. You get right back to the source. Okay, we're going to do the halacha now.
How about just quickly?